Hello, how are you today? Do you want to dive into a book that might just surprise you, whether it becomes your next favorite or one you might skip? Let's find out what readers are saying about it.
Carol, who has 98 likes, says, "Thoughts on the book. My review. Thoughts on the audio version. As many people have noted, Kobna Holbrook-Smith is a fabulous reader. Turns out he is an actor and director as well, with a long list of TV credits. Which is kind of a bummer because I hope he continues to have time for the Peter Grant series. Holbrook-Smith is clearly a talented voice actor who can understandably convey a range of London accents, from that of a 19th century itinerant to Nightingale's posh early 20th century to current police vernacular. I also found his Danish and Jamaican accents amusing. Ever since an unfortunate experience with the Stephanie Plum audio, I am particularly impressed when actors are able to voice characters of the opposite sex without making it sound fake. Holbrook-Smith is able to give Leslie a decent voicing, but it really shines when she transforms into Punch. I did feel like quite a few bit characters ended up with a Jamaican-sounding accent, which may or may not reflect London demographics. Interestingly, I noted that I didn't find the audio version quite as funny as I found the paper version. As an American, I wonder if this is an example of the dry British humor that the pause or inflection I expect is missing. I certainly found phrases snicker out loud funny when my inside voice read it. That said, his reading of the following dialogue made me laugh out loud. "You don't think she and Nightingale?" asked Leslie. "Ew," said Beverly. "That's just wrong. I thought you and her were friends?" I asked. "Yeah, but she's like a creature of the night," said Beverly. "And he's old." I will note that there were 2 moments in later chapters when it sounded as if the recording was taken up weeks or months later. It was still the same reader, but something about the tone of the recording and the closeness of the voice changed. I did love the jazz introduction between chapters. Overall, a great audio. I'll definitely continue revisiting the series through audio. Natalia, who has 327 likes, says, "Rivers of London is a fun mix of so many things that I love in my pleasure reads, the geekiness and the science, the dry British humor, and the magical, mythical, phantasmagorical stuff in a big city. What's not to like? My whole life, basically. Really. Examples: Terry Pratchett, Neil Gaiman, even some of China Miéville's stuff. Examples: Harry Dresden books, China Miéville, Neil Gaiman, even Sir Terry." Carved above the lintel were the words "Scientia potestas est science points east." I wondered? Science is portentous. Yes? Science protests too much. Scientific potatoes rule. Had I stumbled on the lair of dangerous plant geneticists? The US titled Midnight Riot, which used to be called Rivers of London before some American publisher undoubtedly decided that the target audience should not be aspiring US-based geographers, is a great read for me. A self-proclaimed devout Dresdenite, as in Harry Dresden, the Chicago wizard for hire, and not so much the German city. It has all the surface similarities to that series, a magically inclined constable collaborating with the police force of a big city to solve magical crimes, while interacting with a slew of mythical creatures and engaging in self-deprecating pop culture references laden humor. And, in case of Peter Grant, lacking the borderline misogynist chivalry. But before you, those who do not share my affection for the Dresden universe run away screaming from this book. Please listen, it apparently appealed even to those who cannot stand Harry Dresden. All the similarities aside, this book has a very distinct and fun voice, and is less pulpy, much lighter on the magical stuff and whimsy, and heavier on dry humor and police procedurals as well as geekiness than the Chicago Wizard books. I'd like to say that I remembered the practice of exchanging hostages from school history classes or from stories of pre-colonial life in Sierra Leone. But the truth was that it came up while playing Dungeons and Dragons when I was 13. Peter Grant is joining the ranks of my favorite characters with his self-deprecating humor firmly rooted in pop culture and modern world, as well as his own complicated family dynamics. A probationary constable who is recruited into a small, now consisting of 2 people, Department of London Police dealing with the supernatural. He approaches learning magic from a viewpoint of a natural scientist, carrying out experiments, creating theories, and even using science and valid deductions to counteract the villain in one of the major confrontations, all helped along with humor, and told in a narrative voice that is very even-keeled, even when the protagonist is faced with a life-or-death situation. And which, in my opinion, adds to the appeal of this story. We did an hour of practice, at the end of which I was capable of flinging a fireball down the range at the dizzying speed of a bumblebee who'd met his pollen quota and was taking a moment to enjoy the view. Image error. And the city, Ben Aaronovitch's love for London is contagious. London is very much a character in this story. And way more than just a setting. The history, the streets, the landmarks, even the rivers in this story are captivating. I love when that happens in books. And I thoroughly enjoyed it in this story. Being a seasoned Londoner, Martin gave the body the London once over, a quick glance to determine whether this was a drunk, a crazy or a human being in distress. The fact that it was entirely possible for someone to be all 3 simultaneously is why Good Samaritanism in London is considered an extreme sport, like base jumping or crocodile wrestling. But wait there for a second. Natalia, you must be wondering, if you loved this book so much then, A, why don't you marry it? And B, why the hell did you just 3-star it? Huh? Well, here's why. While I love the narrative voice and the protagonist to pieces, I find the storyline not very memorable or compelling. I am sure I'll remember Peter Grant for years to come, but I'll be hard-pressed to remember what the hell the story was about. No, it's not hard to follow, but it's just not that memorable. And, honestly, not that engrossing. Moreover, the 2 main stories in this book, aptly represented by the titles that the different sides of the ocean have chosen, Midnight Riot and Rivers of London, felt to me quite separate from each other, connected only by the fact that Peter Grant was involved in both of them. I think Aaronovitch should have either connected them together in a more meaningful way, or has chosen one of them to focus on. Despite my gripes with the storylines, I was so enamored with the narration and the humor and the protagonist that I will without a doubt read the next book in the series, and will highly recommend this one. Peter Grant for the win. 3.5 stars. If you ask any police officer what the worst part of the job is, they will always say breaking bad news to relatives. But this is not the truth. The worst part is staying in the room after you've broken the news, so that you're forced to be there when someone's life disintegrates around them. Some people say it doesn't bother them. Such people are not to be trusted. By the way, here is my review of the 2nd book in the series, Moon Over Soho. For the review of the 3rd book, Whispers Underground, head over here. And for the 4th one, Broken Homes, over here. Recommended by Katie. Sonia Rosa Lisa, who has 69 likes, says, Dieses Buch hat mich ein bisschen berischt. Denn ich hatte erwartet, dass es mir besser gefallen wrde. Es war gut, aber leider auch hin und wieder ein bisschen langatmig. Dabei ist es inhaltlich genau meins. Ein bisschen Sherlock Holmes und ein bisschen Harry Potter. Mal sehen. Vielleicht kann mich der Zweitband etwas mehr beruhigen. Cinna, who has 289 likes, says, Goddammit, I wanted to like this one. I really did. It has a lot going for it. Midnight Riot, also known as Rivers of London Across the Pond, has, while not the most original premise, certainly an engaging voice. It's got that dry British humor going on, an initially likable hero, an intriguing world and diverse cast, a science-ish based magic system, and a POC protagonist who doesn't read like a white guy with a paint job. It was close, so close, to enjoyable. Unfortunately, it's first and foremost a blatant male wish fulfillment fantasy, which I could have endured if the female characters hadn't ended up a casualty of the male-centric plot. Midnight Riot is heavy on the sexism, sometimes subtle, sometimes not so much, but present and grating enough to make it a problem for me. Sigh, but let's talk about the good things. First for once. 4 things I liked about Midnight Riot. 1. It's funny. Aaronovitch knows his stuff. Midnight Riot tends towards dry and subversive humor, and Aaronovitch is very good at using characters and archetypes familiar to the genre in funny and unexpected ways. The dialogue is, for the most part, sharp, and conversations have the sort of timing you'd expect from someone with a history of penning witty television shows. Riot and its world and its characters have the feel of a slightly wacky weekly supernatural police procedural, and I could easily see it working as one. Not every joke works, of course, but more than anything else the deadpan tone of the novel kept me reading and interested, even through 2 seriously meandering, disconnected plots, and an often history-heavy narrative. Point 2. It has a truly diverse cast. Midnight Riot was one of the few books with a POC protagonist where I feel like the author didn't just label a white protagonist Black or Asian or Native American and been done with it. Peter's race actively impacts his life and his experiences, the way people react to him on the subway, or during a riot, or even in his job. He is aware of how his skin color makes a difference. It's not heavy-handed or preachy or the point of the story. It's just an aspect of Peter's life. And I think Aaronovitch handled that aspect quite well. There's also a higher than average number of characters of color. In general, Dr. Waleed, the coroner, is Scottish Muslim, and Peter's mother, of course, is an immigrant from Sierra Leone. His love interest, Beverly Brooke, the powerful Mama Thames, and the majority of the Rivers of London are African women. They all seem to largely avoid stereotypes, though I find the success of Bev and Mama Thames' portrayal a little sketchier, but that has more to do with the treatment of their genders than their race. Point 3. The magic system is really cool. I'm not one to give a shit about this sort of thing, usually, but Midnight Riot's science-based magic system caught my fancy. Peter is actually surprisingly inquisitive after he's chosen to begin training as a wizard, and doesn't let the revelation of magic and monsters and ghosts shake his confidence in the laws of science and nature that make up his understanding of the world. Like a hero after my own heart, Peter doesn't just accept that magic works because magic. Instead, he immediately begins applying the laws of physics to them. Peter questions. He experiments, he formulates theories, and then he tests them. And through his reasoning, we get a basic understanding of how magic works. In more scientific terms than usual, magical spells are discussed in terms of joules and newtons, conservation of mass, energy, the laws of thermodynamics. They all apply. It's not all hand-waving and mystical force. The magic has consequences. One memorable example is when Peter runs a series of experiments to discover why casting spells results in the destruction of nearby electronics, including his cell phone. After a series of tests, he is not only able to give a reasonable explanation as for why, but also figures out how far the sphere of damage extends, and how to avoid it altogether. It's neat stuff, granted, Science can only go so far in explaining supernatural phenomenon. And there comes a time when both Peter and his teacher have to admit that they just don't know how. Some magic works scientifically, but there was enough detail that I didn't really mind when we got to that point. What I liked was that the magic was limited. It has rules. It requires repeated practice and study and patience. So Peter can't just whip out a wand and deus ex machina his way through the book with some random badass spell 10 levels above his proficiency. Though, of course, this doesn't prevent other magical deities from deus ex-ing to their heart's content. The point is, the system more firmly grounds Peter Grant's world in reality than most any other urban fantasy series I've come across. It's well thought out and detailed, and I appreciate that. Point 4. Peter Grant has the potential to be a cool character. I'm of two minds about Peter. On the one hand, I wanted to like him. He's not a dickhead alpha male convinced he knows better than everyone else. He's actually got an underdog feel. He's not quite attentive enough to be a good police officer. He's best friends with a woman he desperately wants to date, and he's destined for a life of paperwork. Until the ghost shows up, he commits to studying magic. But he's still got to practice like anyone else. And he makes plenty of dumb mistakes on the long road to solving the book's mystery. He's just kind of an average guy, so what's the problem? Well, I mean, did you read that last paragraph? Every last bit of that makes Peter a perfect nerd wish fulfillment insert. He's the meek, ignored, everyday beta male who is chosen by fate to become the hero. Who gets the super sweet magician's apprentice gig instead of the mundane paper-pushing desk job he dreaded. Who saves the day and gets the hot girlfriend and shows all those doubters what's what. One thing that utterly killed Midnight Riot for me: misogyny. Given the oversaturation of male wish fulfillment characters in the general media, this kind of story isn't for everyone. But I really could have gotten past that if the women hadn't been so completely filtered through this lens. Like how so much of Peter's story seemed designed to pointedly get the one-up on his dastardly friend-zoning female counterpart. Leslie, read full review at Your Killing Us. Annie, who has 58 likes, says, it could have been a fun urban fantasy story if not for the horny musings of its protagonist. I can take a lot in terms of the male gaze in literature, but holy FCK, this one takes it too far. Just one of the many examples to save you time and money. I was fighting the urge to fling myself to my knees before her and put my face between her breasts and go blubby, blubby, blubby. When she offered me a seat, I was so hard it was painful to sit down. Aaronovitch Lock, 1599. I wish I was making this up. I really do. Someone wrote this. Someone else signed off on it and said sure, go ahead. And then this abomination of a paragraph got published.